Assalamu alaikum, Arizona. Assalamu alaikum, Arizona. I'm from New York. We just have a lot of more energy, so don't be scared. That's right. Any New Yorkers in the house? Ooh, look at that. MashaAllah. Well, I'm a special kind of New Yorker. Any Brooklynites in the house? Yeah. All right, that's it. Done. Now I feel more at home. I'm so honored and humbled to be here to celebrate CAIR-Arizona and share a stage with none other than Dr. Sherman Jackson, someone who I love and respect more than he probably knows, and Amina Mirza-Kazi from CAIR-AZ. A sister of ours, Zahra Bilou from CAIR San Francisco, wrote on her Facebook, "You don't usually get 2/3 women on stage at a Muslim event, but you did with CAIR-Arizona, so we know they're on the right track." It's also my first time ever in the state of Arizona. I've been to over 30 states in this country, and Arizona was not one of those states. And I feel like I'm amongst family. And I'm not just saying that because all of you in this room are my brothers and sisters, but today I was reunited with blood relatives. Today I was reunited with Iman Sarsour and Ismail Sarsour, who are blood relatives and whom I haven't seen in over 18 years. I had no idea they were in Arizona or affiliated with CAIR. And because of that, I have now named Imran Siddiqui the Muslim Locator. For those of you who don't know, The Locators is a show on TV where they reunite long-lost loved ones who have lost touch or never met. So I want to thank CAIR-Arizona for bringing me back to members of my family. No shortage of blessings here at CAIR-Arizona. I went to public school my entire life, and when I was young, resented my parents for sending us to Arabic and Quranic schools on the weekends. 15 years of continuous school throughout the week, where I learned to read and write Arabic, memorize Quran, and now as a parent myself of 3 beautiful children, I love my parents even more for that experience, the opportunity to pass knowledge on to my children, although for so long growing up I hadn't appreciated it. Things happen in our lives that forever change us. And I know that many of you may be tired of hearing about 9/11, but for me it is an event that forever changed who I am, how I think, and how I look at the world. On that day, I walked out of my college campus and I put my hand out to catch white flurries. And these white flurries were not snow. They were pieces of burned paper around the edges. And my community in Southwest Brooklyn, home to the largest Arab American community in the state of New York, was a ghost town. Businesses closed, mosques, stores bolted. I was confused. As I walked to my parents' home where my son and daughter were waiting for me, my mom brushes by me without her hijab. And when I point out to her that she had forgotten to wear her hijab, she says to me, "I can't. I'm going to pick up your brother from school. It's dangerous." I fell silent and I walked inside and saw my son jump up off the floor and take my hand and points to the TV. And he repeats, "Fire, Mommy, fire, fire." A day I will never forget, a day that started this journey to serve my community as a New Yorker and as a Muslim. A day that started my journey to protect the civil rights of my community and all oppressed communities. A few weeks after 9/11, my organization, the Arab American Association of New York, opened its doors. I was called in by a family relative, the late Basima Atwa, may Allah rest her soul. She said to me, "Linda, you speak English, you speak Arabic, you're from this community, I need you, we need you." I did not hesitate because in our culture, you do not say no to family. I went to the headquarters of the Arab American Association on 5th Avenue in Brooklyn to help in whatever way I can. I had no idea what I was doing, and neither did the association. We did not know the magnitude of what was happening in our very own neighborhood, in the place we have called home for so long. Remember when 9/11 happened, I was 21 years old. I was well aware of the world before 9/11. Where being Muslim was generally, it was all right. Being Palestinian was actually seen as cool in New York City thanks to hip hop. And I was never bullied in school, and my experience was, in retrospect, what I believed was a normal kid growing up in New York City. What I witnessed in those very first days was eye-opening. Women looking for husbands, men were disappearing from our communities for days, weeks, sometimes months at a time. One day I met a woman from Morocco and her son Ahmed, who was only 4 years old. She explained to me that law enforcement agents came to her home and took her husband. Told her not to worry, he'll be back soon. Soon was already 6 days. She cried and cried. Her son took my hand, and with tears in his eyes, he said to me, "Please, Auntie, I just want to see him, maybe talk to him on the phone, okay?" He left it at a question, and I immediately responded and said, "Yes. Okay, you're gonna speak to your father. I'm going to let you see him." I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew that as a mother, I was going to do everything I can to get Ahmed his dad back. With aggressive advocacy with local and federal law enforcement agency, pro bono attorneys of all faiths working round the clock, Ahmed was reunited with his father 3 days later. When the family came to my office with a box of Arabic sweets and Ahmed ran up to hug me, I knew right then and there that Allah brought me to the right place and that this was my purpose. Over the years, I worked with so many families in the Muslim community, both locally in New York and from across the country. Families threatened to be torn apart by deportation, cases of discrimination, intimidation, harassment, bullying. Almost 11 years later, after 9/11, we continue to live in one of the most hostile civic environments that our community has ever experienced. In 2010, a bogus controversy orchestrated by Islamophobes and high-paid bigots around the Park 51 Islamic Center, otherwise coined as the Ground Zero Mosque, erupted in mosque opposition fronts across the country. Not just in Manhattan, but in Staten Island, New York, in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, Old Bridge, New Jersey, Temecula, California, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and the list goes on. I remember attending a rally in support of a mosque in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, where those opposed stood across from us and held up signs that said, "No Mass, no Hamas." MAS was in reference to the Muslim American Society, a sister organization that were the developers of the mosque. The opposition had signs that read, "No terrorists in our neighborhood, you don't belong here, go back home." This wasn't my New York. In the summer of 2010, we had an end of summer camp celebration at my organization where the children and their families come to celebrate and get their certificates. As I walked around, a young boy about 12 years old asked me, "Sister, I'm now going to middle school in September. Do I tell them that I'm Muslim?" And I immediately responded and said, "Of course, you should be proud." I had no idea where he was taking this. And then he responds and says, "What if they hurt me?" And I was like, "Why would they do that? Don't worry, that's not going to happen." And as we were in this discussion, some other young boys joined in, and this young man continues to say, "But they stabbed that man in the cab, didn't they? Didn't he tell the guy he was Muslim and then he got stabbed?" He was referring to Ahmed Sharif, a taxi cab driver in New York City, who was stabbed only a day ago after telling his passenger he was Muslim. One of the young boys who joined the discussion jumps in and asks, "Why do they hate us?" And my son was also listening, and I was dumbfounded by this conversation that I was having with 12-year-old boys. Instead of our kids being excited about going to middle school or even having the normal anxiety of going to middle school, they are asking whether to conceal their identity out of fear of being hurt, harassed, or marginalized in a place that's supposed to be safe, in a place that they spend most of their day. In the summer of 2011, the Associated Press confirmed through an investigative report that the NYPD was spying on the Muslim American community in its entirety. Not based on criminal activity or probable cause, but simply based on our faith. They sent informants, who they called rakers, into our mosques, businesses, restaurants, and our Muslim student associations. The NYPD's demographic unit focused on 29 ancestries of interest. 28 were, of course, Arab or Muslim majority countries of origin. And they created a special category. The 29th category was a special category for Black American Muslims. No one was immune. I don't care if you were a doctor or a taxi cab driver or a student. We were all subject and continue to be subject to this discriminatory and illegal practice by the New York Police Department. But wait, this wasn't the only discriminatory policy the police were implementing. Stop and frisk, a policy that targets young Blacks and Latinos in New York City, was a fight already being fought. In 2011, NYPD stopped more than 680,000 Blacks and Latinos, more than the number of young Blacks and Latinos in New York City. Why were they stopping them? No reason. Because they fit a profile, because they were young, Black and Latino, and they were the suspect of crimes in our cities. What did we do in the Muslim community? We didn't start our own fight. We joined communities of color in New York City and those already at the forefront of police reform to bring our issue to light. Not as a Muslim issue, but as an issue that all New Yorkers should care about. Stop and frisk and Muslim for surveillance are now being spoken about in the same sentence. Why? Because in order for our community to stand for justice, we cannot just stand for us. In Arizona, oh my God, what can I say about Arizona? You guys got some amazing people in Arizona. Steadfast organizers leading the charge against monsters like Maricopa County Sheriff Arpaio. A man who thinks he's above the law, thinks that racial profiling is a good law enforcement tactic, arrests innocent people of color, supported the anti-immigration bill, has ignored over 430 cases of sexual assaults in his jails that he oversees. For years, members of the Latino community and their allies have rallied and protested in front of Maricopa County Jail. A jail that has been deemed a violator of civil rights of its inmates. A jail where some inmates sleep in cots outdoors under the scorching desert sun. I'm asking you in this room, did you join these rallies? Were you aware of how many families and communities were impacted by this man and this unjust system in your state? Your governor took federal law into her own hands to pass outrageous anti-immigration bills, otherwise known as the Show Me Your Papers law. This bill allows police to enforce immigration law and stop people based on whether they thought you were undocumented. This means all people of color. It could be any of you. Although some of the provisions were shot down by the Department of Justice, some still stand. Were you there at the massive rallies across the state of Arizona? Did you lend your voice against this legalized racism? If you are an imam, did you talk about these issues as part of your sermons in your mosques? Have we discussed our role as Muslims in discourse in the state of Arizona? Some of you may have, no judgment here. I just want to ask ourselves a question and listen carefully to me. Will we stand for justice or will we stand just for us? Will we stand for justice or will we stand for just us? This brings me to why we are here tonight. We are here to honor CAIR-Arizona and to make them one of the best chapters across the country. Every community needs a CAIR. CAIR is fearless, they're outspoken, and they're there when you need them. I work with CAIR chapters across the country, including in New York. When there's a discrimination case, who do you call? CAIR. When a woman has been fired from her job because she now decided to wear a hijab, whom do we call? When a child is being bullied in school because he's a Muslim and the school administration is not addressing this issue, whom do we call? When we need a bold statement that is based on fact, reason, and principle, who do we call? CAIR. CAIR is our Muslim ACLU. We need them, and they demonstrate our strength as a community. When I look at successful CAIR chapters around the country, what that tells me is that there's a local community that's a strong one, and that's why that CAIR chapter is successful. Not everyone in this room can be a full-time advocate for their community, which is cool. That's nothing to be ashamed of. We are all different, we have different life tracks, are in different professions. The least we can do is when we see people in our community taking the initiative to step up on behalf of our community, we should support them. We call these people, it is a sin on our entire community. But even if a few Muslim sisters and brothers pray janazah for them, they have fulfilled that application on all of our behalves. And for me, that is the same for those in our community who are advocates. This includes CAIR. If someone in our community is suffering, needs support, advocacy, and there is nowhere to turn, we must blame ourselves, and I consider that a form of sin. Let us support those willing to be that place to turn to. We can support them with our time and/or our financial resources. We must straighten our back as a community because we have a history in this nation that we should be proud of. A history that didn't start on 9/11, but has been here since the days of the slave trade. We owe our African American Muslim brothers and sisters gratitude for paving the way for us to practice Islam in this great nation. I want my children to grow up confident and fearless and proud. I want them to always feel like they can walk with their heads held high. Regardless of what your opinion is about President Obama, we cannot deny that he gives our children hope that one day they too can be the President of the United States. We need to guide the way for our children, build strong communities and institutions. We need to work together in love and brotherhood to see that our bond is not broken by a flawed system that characterizes us as foreign and a threat. A bond that is not broken by divisive policies of law enforcement. A bond that is not broken by mischaracterization of our faith by racist hate mongers. Arizona, I can feel this bond in this room, and may that bond be the foundation to uplift CAIR-Arizona as a leading civil rights group for all people in the state of Arizona, not just the Muslim community. I hope to return next year to CAIR-Arizona's Banquet as an attendee and reflect on the year that has passed. All the accomplishments you have made together as a community through the expansion and work of CAIR-Arizona, inshallah. I believe in you, and with Allah at our side and at the side of CAIR-Arizona, success is inevitable. When you give tonight, give generously. It is what our faith tells us to do. It is what makes us Muslim. It is what makes us an ummah. It is what makes us family. Thank you so much for having me here.